What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to Bourbon of the Week. My name's Chris. I'm going to be your host for today, and today we are taking a trip in our time machine because this is batch 15 of Stagg Jr. coming in at 131.1 proof. This is actually the highest Stagg Jr. proof that I've had, but everybody knows before we get started on all of that, time for the traditional sip. Cheers, y'all. That's hot. So if you haven't seen my previous videos, we have already reviewed batch 14 as well as batch 17. Batch 14 comes in at 130.2 proof. Batch 17 comes in at 128.7 proof. They both tied, if I remembered correctly, at a 9.17 on our ranking sheet. We're going to see what this batch 15 at 131.1 proof can come in at. Maybe it'll be higher, maybe it'll be lower, but everybody knows the rules. Price, taste, drinkability. Let's get into drinkability right now. So my brother-in-law actually let me borrow this bottle, which is how I got my hands on it. I don't usually have a lot of opportunity to get Stagg Jr. We know they dropped the Junior now and it's just Stagg. But in general, I don't have a lot of opportunity. Here in Pennsylvania, it's usually an online drop. I haven't seen this year's release yet. I'm hoping that the 18 releases soon and I can get my hands on it. But in the meantime, we're going to deal with Stagg Jr. 15 here to get our hopes up for what 18 can bring us. I will say this, for 131.1 proof, this drink's a little bit hotter than I remember the other two drinking. It's not the hottest thing that I've sipped. We've had Jack Daniel's Coy Hill before, but when it comes to drinkability, I know I gave those a pretty good score. This is the hotter of the three, so maybe that has something to do with it, but it's only like a proof or so difference when it comes to that batch, what was it, 14 at 130.2 proof. So let's take one more sip and let's find out. So the second and third sip definitely go down a lot easier than the first sip did. I will say, comparing this to something like Larceny Barrel Proof or Elijah Craig Barrel Proof, I think it's somewhere right in the middle. We know Larceny Barrel Proof B521, B522. No, B521, the 22 hasn't released still here in Pennsylvania. The B521 sits atop the list. The drinkability on that was absolutely fantastic. I think this does beat the Elijah Craig's when it comes to the drinkability, but at the same time, I don't think it quite touches what I had when it comes to Larceny Barrel Strength or Barrel Proof, whatever you want to call it. This right here for 131.1 proof, I'm going to give it a score of low 9s, high 8s. Let's give it high 8s, 8.97 when it comes to drinkability on this. And as you may or may not know, that's going to get us into taste on this next. And I will say that I do not remember the taste profile tasting quite like this when it came to batch 14 or batch 17. I feel like I got a lot more sweetness out of that, a lot more cherry note, a lot more fruity, sweet notes than I'm getting out of this one right here. This is giving me more of those tannins, those oaks, and I've been getting that on a lot of my whiskeys lately. Maybe my palate's just changing and adjusting and starting to notice those nuances just a little bit more, or maybe I'm just absolutely terrible at this. We'll never know, but I'm getting a lot more of that age, that dark notes when it comes to this. Still a little bit of a cherry bomb on this, don't get me wrong, but at the end of the day, this doesn't bring out quite as much sweetness as I thought it was going to compared to what I got on 14 and 17. That being said, though, it's still Buffalo Trace, right? Very well rounded. The blending process is almost perfect. Everything about this bottle tastes good. There's nothing bad when it comes to the flavor profile. And I don't like comparing it to other projects in the past, especially if I'm not blinding all three of them together. But I will say this, I think it's missing a little bit of sweetness that I'm used to when it comes to Stagg and Buffalo Trace in general. But at the end of the day, it's not bad. I think I'm going to put it right up there in the high 8s again. We'll say like an 8.92 when it comes to taste on this. I don't think it quite deserves to be in the 9 because I think it's lacking just a little bit when it comes to that roller coaster ride that I usually love. Sweetness, spicy, rye, oaks, all of it involved. This is just missing a hint of that sweetness that I wish it had. And so we're going to put it in an 8.92 when it comes to taste on this. Let's get to price. And last but certainly not least, that's going to get us into price on this. And this bottle comes in at $49.99. Now, I know you probably can't find it at $49.99. I know I can't find it at $49.99, especially for being batch 15. This is long gone, sold. If you do find this on the shelves, it's probably because it's marked up $400, $500, $600, or you're going to find this on RAS sites or secondaries. And I feel like the market's kind of shifting where stores are actually marking their stuff up a little bit more to kind of persuade people not to sell it secondary, but still making the price reasonable enough that you can afford it. But at the end of the day, at $49.99, $50 for this bottle right here, you really can't go wrong. We've already compared it to Larceny, to Elijah Craig, both around that price range as well. I'm going to take one more sip, finish this up, and we'll give you a score when it comes to price. Yeah, again, that flavor profile for me personally is just lacking a little bit compared to the other two. Drinkability gets easier and easier as this goes. At $50, you cannot go wrong on this. I'm going to give it like a 9.42 when it comes to price on this. But listen, I'm going to pour a little bit more up here, and we're going to send this over to this week's Bourbon Bomb of the Week and learn a little bit more about how you might be able to get your hands on bottles like these a little bit easier in the near future. Let's do this. So I'm sure you've already heard, but Buffalo Trace is spending $1.2 billion, that's right, billion with a B dollars, on an expansion program that is going to double their whiskey production. And let me just tell you a little bit about the numbers that go behind this. So the boring stuff first, they started a new bottling and distribution operation in 2015 as well as in 2019. This is just to make sure they can keep up with the demand when they do start producing more of the whiskeys. But let me give you a few numbers on some of the other projects that they're working on. They're adding 14 new barrel warehouses, 12 additional fermenters, adding cookers, new cooling systems. They've tripled the size of their visitor center. They're adding a dry house, a hammer mill, a still house. The wastewater treatment plant should be constructed and operational by the end of 2022. The still house, December 22, will double the size of production. They're creating an identical still to the one they already have, which is 40 feet tall and will be able to handle 60,000 gallons per day. The wastewater treatment plant will handle 1.2 million gallons of wastewater per day. If you have any idea what that's like, we have a small town here in Bridgeport, Pennsylvania that my brother-in-law works at, the wastewater treatment plant. They handle about 366,000 gallons, while they can handle up to 1.9 million. This one distillery in Kentucky is handling 1.2 million gallons of wastewater per day once this process is done. Now that's all the good news. Let's get to the bad news real quick. Once this process is done, it's still going to take, what, 8 to 10 years to put out this product right here, 15 years to put out something like George T. Stagg. We have the Weller lineup in that 12-year line. You know, Pappy 23, Pappy 15, all of these take time to age. So just because this is going to be done by the end of 2022 going into 2023, we still got to wait another 8 to 10 years before we start seeing more of this product on our shelves. And Buffalo Trace has already released statements saying they don't plan on taking any shortcuts when it comes to the aging process. And I guess I can respect that. But at the end of the day, if I can get a little George T. Stagg 12 years from now, I'm not going to be too mad about it. Let's send it back over and figure out what this score was for this week. Cheers, y'all. So you may or may not know this, but before I actually sit down in front of my camera and film, sometimes I have a glass of the whiskey that night. Sometimes I have it a week before just to kind of see what I'm dealing with. For this particular bottle, I had one about a week ago, but I never actually give it any scores until I sit down in front of the camera. I think it keeps me a little more honest. I think it's a little more off the cuff. And this bottle came in at a 9.10, which is the perfect spot for it. It's a 9.17 for the other two, and this is only 0.07 off from those other two. And I think it's the flavor profile falling 0.07 short that made this bottle be just a little bit behind. That being said, there isn't a Stagg Jr. that I've tried yet that I truly haven't enjoyed. Again, a 9.17, 9.10, whatever it happens to be, still a fantastic bottle. If you have an opportunity to pick this up at or around MSRP, I highly recommend it. I will be doing a blind of the 3 of them, so make sure you click that like and make sure you click that subscribe button so you can check out that content one day soon. But in the meantime, make sure you check me out on Instagram at Bourbon of the Week. Go click that follow button over there. Check out my Patreon page. We do a lot of cool things just for Patreons, and we have some big things coming up this winter with some holiday specials. So check out that link in the description below to the Patreon. Come chat with us 24/7 on our Discord. That link in the description below as well. Please don't drink and drive. Always drink responsibly and stay healthy, stay happy, stay drinking. Cheers, y'all. It's a lot of Stagg with work in the morning.